Take a moment right now to simply listen, not to the sounds in the room, but to the soundscape within. What do you find? For nearly every one of us, there exists a perpetual, often subconscious radio station broadcasting from behind our eyes. This is the voice of the thinking mind, a relentless narrator that provides a running commentary on every aspect of existence. It analyzes the past, dissecting conversations for hidden meanings and replaying moments of embarrassment or triumph. It projects into the future, constructing elaborate scenarios of success, or, more commonly, weaving intricate tapestries of worry and anxiety about events that have not and may never come to pass. It judges incessantly the taste of your coffee, the behavior of a stranger, the pace of your progress, the choices you made years ago. This voice is rarely neutral. It is often a critic, a taskmaster, a defender of the ego, or a fearful prophet. We are so intimately fused with this internal dialogue from the moment we wake to the moment we drift into sleep that we mistake its cadence for our own identity. We believe without question that this stream of thoughts, this chaotic blend of memory, projection, and opinion is the fundamental essence of who we are. We grant it ultimate authority, allowing its often negative assessments to dictate our mood, its anxieties to constrict our lives, and its limited perspective to define our reality. This identification is the root of our unconscious suffering. We fail to see that this voice is not the core self, but a conditioned phenomenon, a complex tool of the psyche shaped by childhood experiences, cultural narratives, and personal trauma. It operates on deeply ingrained patterns, often seeking to control the uncontrollable flow of life to create a fragile sense of security. Learning to step back from this fusion, to observe the voice without immediately believing its story, is the critical first awakening. It is the realization that if you can notice the voice, then you cannot be the voice. You are the awareness that hears it. This profound shift from being the thought to being the witness of thought is the gateway to true freedom and the beginning of the end of your unconscious partnership with the tyrannical, yet often misguided narrator in your mind.
The awakening of consciousness rarely begins with a fanfare or a cataclysmic event. More often, it announces itself in the hushed, almost stolen moments between our thoughts, a sudden, unexpected aperture of clarity in the otherwise congested narrative of the mind. These are the instances where the relentless internal monologue, that familiar voice of planning, judging, and worrying, inexplicably short-circuits and falls silent. It is not something you can force or summon on command. It is a grace that arrives unbidden. In that profound and startling quiet, something miraculous occurs. You experience reality directly, without the familiar filter of your own mental commentary. The world does not change, but your perception of it is utterly transformed. It is as if a window you never knew was smeared with grime has been wiped perfectly clean. And for the first time, you see the vividness of the color green in a leaf. You feel the subtle caress of the air on your skin not as a meteorological data point, but as a pure sensation. And you hear the distant sound of a bird not as an identifier to be named, but as a timeless, beautiful vibration. This is a glimpse of pure presence, a state of being where the heavy weight of your personal history, your regrets, your labels, your story temporarily dissolves, and you are simply and utterly here. You might have encountered this while gazing at a breathtaking landscape that left you speechless, or in the heart-stopping pause after a piece of music ends, suspended in the reverberating silence. You might have found it in a moment of intense physical exertion, where the mind has no room for anything but the action, or even in a sudden, calm stillness that descends amidst a personal crisis. In that expansive now, time loses its linear grip. The past and future cease to exist as pressing concerns, and you are connected to a profound sense of peace that feels both intimately personal and infinitely larger than yourself. These moments are not rare, but they are frequently overlooked and dismissed because we lack the context to understand them. We are taught to value doing and thinking, not being and sensing. So we brush them aside as quirky lapses in concentration or fleeting moods, failing to recognize them for what they truly are, the most important clues to our true nature, direct experiences of the consciousness that lies beneath the thinking mind, and an invitation to rediscover the wholeness that has been here all along, patiently waiting in the silence between our thoughts. As you begin the subtle and profound work of observing your own mind, a disconcerting yet ultimately liberating realization begins to dawn. The thoughts that you have always assumed were the product of your conscious will seem to possess a startling autonomy. This internal voice, a ceaseless stream of commentary, judgment, and rehearsal, does not feel like a tool you deliberately employ, but rather like a radio that was left on in another room, perpetually broadcasting a signal you cannot shut off. It narrates your experience in real time, labeling the world as good or bad, comparing your present moment to a memory or an ideal, and tirelessly constructing a story about who you are. This story, your egoic identity, is a patchwork quilt sewn from the threads of past triumphs and humiliations, societal expectations, inherited beliefs, and future anxieties. The fundamental problem, therefore, is not the existence of thought itself. Thinking is a powerful and essential human capacity, but our profound and unconscious identification with its content. We do not see a thought that says, "I am a failure." We simply experience ourselves as a failure. The thought arrives, and with it comes the entire emotional and physiological weight of that belief seamlessly and instantly. This process is so swift and so ingrained that we never pause to question the validity of the narrator. We grant this mental chatter absolute authority, allowing a transient, often fear-based electrical impulse in the brain to define our entire reality and sense of self. This leads to the pivotal, paradigm-shifting question: do you actually think your thoughts, or are you being thought by them? Upon close inspection, you may find that the majority of your mental activity arises without any conscious initiation or invitation. The mind, like a hyperactive committee, generates proposals, warnings, and fantasies automatically based on its old programming. You, the conscious awareness behind it all, are often merely a passive attendee, forced to listen to the debate. This state of being lived by your mind is the core of the illusion. It creates a fabricated reality, a personalized dream where every perception is filtered through a lens of past conditioning, and every moment is appropriated to reinforce the story of me. In this dream, you are disconnected from the raw, unfiltered experience of the present moment, trapped instead in a conceptual world of your own making. You are exiled from the vividness of life into a labyrinth of ideas about life, a prisoner of a psychic structure that mistakes its own map for the territory. However, this recognition, as unsettling as it may feel, is not a cause for despair, but the first and most crucial step toward genuine liberation. It is the crack in the wall of the ego through which the light of awareness can finally begin to stream.
The journey from intellectual understanding to genuine awakening is bridged by a single, transformative, and deeply practical act: the power of self-observation. This is not an aggressive act of control or suppression, but a gentle, non-judgmental turning of attention inward, a simple, almost curious noticing of the mental and emotional phenomena that arise within your field of awareness. It begins the moment you consciously catch yourself lost in a train of thought, perhaps one fueled by anxiety or old resentment. And instead of being carried away by its momentum, you softly note, "Ah, there is thinking," or "there is worry." This subtle shift in perspective is nothing short of revolutionary. In that instant, a critical separation occurs. You are no longer submerged in the river of thought. You have become the aware bank from which the river can be witnessed. A space, initially tiny but profound, opens up between your core identity, the awareness, and the content of your mind, the thought. This space is the birthplace of true freedom. You begin to see your thoughts not as absolute truths that define you, but as transient mental events that appear, play out, and dissolve back into the silence from which they came, much like clouds passing through the vast open sky of your consciousness. This practice of observation is the essential tool for deconstructing the false egoic identity that your thoughts have constructed over a lifetime. Each time you witness a fearful or judgmental thought without immediately identifying with it, you withdraw the energy that sustains it. You are, in effect, firing the tyrannical narrator and hiring a compassionate, silent witness. Over time, this consistent practice weakens the addictive pull of the mind's drama. The voice in your head will, of course, continue its commentary. Thinking is the mind's innate function, but your relationship to it is irrevocably altered. It transforms from a master you must obey into a tool you can utilize, or simply a noise you can acknowledge and let pass. You start to notice that there is a profound stillness and intelligence that exists behind the chatter, a conscious presence that was always there, patiently waiting beneath the layers of mental noise. This presence is not something you need to create. It is your natural state, accessible only when the dominance of compulsive thinking subsides. This is the true blossoming of awakening, the dawning realization that you are not the content of your experience, but the spacious, aware container in which all experience, thoughts, emotions, sensations, unfolds. It leads you to the ineffable understanding that who you truly are is the silent, luminous awareness that is doing the observing. And in that knowing, you finally come home to yourself.
This entire journey of awakening culminates in a simple yet profound invitation, a call to return home to the only moment that has ever truly existed, the eternal, ever-unfolding present. This is not an invitation to a distant spiritual summit or an esoteric ritual. It is a call to shift the very foundation of your identity from the transient, thinking mind to the vast, silent, and unchanging awareness that witnesses it all. It is the understanding that you are not a fragile character in the story crafted by your thoughts, but the boundless space in which the entire story unfolds. The ultimate key to unlocking the state of being lies not in acquiring something new, but in consciously cultivating the inner space, those precious, quiet intervals between your thoughts where the static of the mind fades and the signal of pure consciousness emerges with perfect clarity. This inner space is not a void of emptiness, but a field of infinite potentiality, a living silence brimming with an intelligent peace that has been patiently waiting beneath the noise of your personal narrative. Accessing this space is both the simplest and most challenging of tasks, for it requires no special equipment or elaborate philosophy, only a gentle but persistent redirecting of your attention away from the world of thought and into the direct experience of the here and now. You can begin this practice by anchoring your awareness in the rhythm of your own breath, feeling the cool air as it enters your nostrils, the gentle expansion of your chest and abdomen, and the warm release on the exhale, noticing how each breath is a complete cycle of receiving and letting go, happening entirely in the present moment. You can anchor yourself in your senses, truly feeling the sun's warmth on your skin as if for the first time, listening to the complex symphony of sounds around you without labeling them, or fully tasting the food you eat, engaging with its texture and flavor so completely that the commentary of the mind is momentarily suspended. These acts of conscious perception are not mundane. They are powerful portals into presence. With consistent practice, these moments of awakened attention begin to stretch, to deepen, and to weave themselves into the very fabric of your daily life. Gradually, the inner space expands from a fleeting gap into an abiding reality. You begin to notice that from this place of stillness, life is lived with a new quality of intention and grace. Your reactions to external events lose their automatic impulsive edge and are replaced by conscious, measured responses. Challenges that once triggered anxiety are met with a newfound resilience and clarity, not because the circumstances have changed, but because your relationship to them has been fundamentally transformed. You engage with others from a place of deep listening and authentic connection because you are no longer preoccupied with your own mental commentary. This is the transformative power of living from presence. It does not change the content of your life, but it utterly revolutionizes the context in which that content is held. It bestows a lightness of being, an unshakable peace that is not dependent on external conditions, but is sourced from within. This is the true homecoming, the realization that the peace, freedom, and wholeness you have been seeking in achievements, relationships, and possessions have always been available, residing in the simple, profound, and often overlooked act of fully inhabiting the present moment. The invitation is perpetually open. You need only to accept it, again and again, by gently turning your attention away from the story in your head and towards the aliveness that is always happening right here, right now.